The Runaway Wife. It is a novel about the life of a fallen Muslim girl. This is also the love story of an Egyptian prostitute who fell in love with one of her male clients, who changed her life for the better. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored to a tribal system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except for the reviewer, who may quote brief passages from the review for printing in a newspaper or a general magazine, school journal, or a university article. All characters in this book are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people, live or dead, is purely coincidental. Chapter 1. Hafiz sits by the window and constantly looks at the beautiful face of his friend Ikram. Her beautiful face, sexy semi-naked body, and long curly black hair always attract her to him. She was still asleep, and half the day had passed. Beloved Hafiz waited impatiently for his beloved Ikram to wake up. Every day they spent together was special, but that day would be different. Because for the first time, Ikram agreed to reveal her past life to Hafiz. Since they met a year ago, Hafiz has known nothing about Ikram's past life. For him, she was only 1 year old. When she was born, where she was born, where did she live, what did she do before he met her, all of this remained a mystery to him. One of the two conditions that Ikram stipulated for Hafiz before moving into his apartment was that she would not tell him about her past life, and the second condition was that she would never marry him. When Hafiz accepted these two conditions, she moved into his apartment and became his beloved girlfriend. And then she gave him everything he wanted from her. The year passed day and night, and the two lovers lived as partners, but were not legally married. Hafiz accepted the love that Ikram gave him. He tried many times to convince her that they should have children, but she always rejected this request. The only reason she refuses to have children with her boyfriend is always the same. She doesn't want to have an illegitimate child with someone she is not married to. This is the only moral value that the Egyptian girl Ikram was determined to uphold throughout her life. She has abandoned all her other moral, social, and religious values except this one. Before she met Hafiz, she was living in a brothel, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes and hookahs, and selling local liquor and drugs. Even after she met Hafiz, she didn't give up all her bad habits. He saved her from prostitution and selling alcohol and drugs, but he could not prevent her from drinking and smoking. How did she come to this kind of life? Such a deep secret hidden behind her beautiful eyes. Like all the men who went there seeking alcohol and sexual pleasure, Hafiz went to the brothel house where the girl Ikram was living as a prostitute. She was famous for her beauty, charm, and sexy body. At first, Ikram treated Hafiz like her other clients. He was attracted to her extreme beauty, sexy body, and gentle personality. He showed great love for her and felt that he fell in love with her at first sight. He promised to visit again, and he did. On his second or third visit, Hafiz expressed his admiration for Ikram and proposed marriage to her. But she only laughed in response. She learned that most of her customers praised her beauty and loyalty. In their intoxicated minds, they thought they had fallen in love with her at first sight. Some of them even offered to secretly marry her as a Muslim Misar's wife. Others wanted to treat her as a secret concubine. But when Hafiz visited her more the prostitute Ikram began to treat him differently. She felt he was somehow different from others. Moreover, she realized that he was sincere in his love. In a short time, his love was able to penetrate her physical body and touch her mind and soul. So she responded to his love and fell in love with him too. The two lovers spent many hours talking to each other. Love was not considered a good thing in those brothels and bars. The beam lady who ran the prostitution business began to object to their relationship. She noticed that the beautiful girl Ikram was wasting a lot of time with one of the clients. Usually, the Egyptian girl Ikram made more money when Hafiz was not present. So the beam lady tried to convince her to put aside her emotions and use her time and beauty to earn more money. She also told her that this type of business does not last long. No one will remain attractive and desirable forever. While Ikram was struggling between her career and her love, Hafiz suggested that she leave her work as a prostitute and come live with him. He promised to take care of her. She believed him and moved into his apartment. Before her move, Ikram stipulated two conditions, which Hafiz accepted. She would not reveal her past life to him and will never marry him. When Hafiz accepted the cohabitation relationship, Ikram moved into his apartment. For a year, the two lovers lived happily together. Their neighbors thought they were a Muslim couple who had married according to the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad and the Holy Book of Allah, the Holy Quran. They lied to everyone that they were husband and wife. Ikram committed herself to a life of cohabitation with Hafiz and did not return to her old life of prostitution. Hafiz also never sought sexual pleasure with another woman again. He worked hard and earned his living by the sweat of his brow. Every Egyptian pound he earned it, he shared it with his partner. His girlfriend Ikram stayed at home and took care of their apartment. Things went like this until one day, the girl Ikram asked her friend Hafiz to accompany her on a long trip. She told him that she wanted to go to the city where she was born to visit some people dear to her. She even told him that she had two sons there. It had been several years since she had seen her children. They were 1 and 2 years old when Ikram left them. Hafiz wanted to know more about Ikram's children and her past life, but she promised to reveal her hidden secret only after they arrived in the town where she was born and raised. Ikram's hometown was a day's train ride from the city where they lived. They arrived at her town late in the evening. They moved from the train station in a taxi to a nearby hotel. They took a quick shower and had dinner. Shortly after, the two lovers went to sleep together in the same large bed. Hafiz woke up as usual at 8 in the morning. He took a quick shower and lit a cigarette. He ordered breakfast from the hotel restaurant and waited for his girlfriend, Ikram, to wake up. An hour has passed since Hafiz woke up. Many times he got impatient and wanted to wake up his girlfriend. Somehow he resisted the temptation and waited patiently for his sleeping beauty to awaken. Another temptation that he resisted with great difficulty was to open the bottle of alcohol containing Cuban made Anisha and take a drink. However, he learned that Anisha is Ikram's favorite drink. He always loved it when she opened the bottle and bought a drink for both of them. Every now and then, he looked away from his girlfriend's beautiful face and looked out the window at the crowded street below. Hundreds of strangers passed through his eyes and disappeared to be replaced by other unknown faces. Hafiz wondered if anyone Ikram knew had passed by on the crowded street. His mind was thinking of some questions. How will Ikram meet her children? With whom do her children live? Do they have one father known to her, or did she give birth to them illegally from two different men? Hafiz did not know whether Ikram had married before she went astray, fell into the world of vice, and became a prostitute. He knew and understood that an Arab girl like her would not engage in prostitution for money. Long ago, he concluded that she had faced problems with her family for her immoral behavior and had run away from home for fear of being killed in an honor killing by her Muslim father. Maybe she unwillingly adopted this kind of bad life, but he did not share his conclusion with his beloved girl. While Hafiz was immersed in these thoughts, he saw his friend begin to extend her hands and yawned. Like a beautiful lotus flower, Ikram opened her beautiful eyes and showed a charming smile. Hafiz walked to her and sat next to her. He blessed a loving kiss on her sweet lips. She pushed him gently and sat on the bed. His girlfriend's beauty and a nice hotel room inspired him to make love to her. He put his hands around her and hugged her very lovingly. Ikram surrendered her to his passion for a while and then freed herself. Not yet, my dear Hafiz, the beautiful girl whispered in a sleepy voice. When Hafiz released her, Ikram stood up and started walking toward the bathroom. Hafiz admired her beautiful appearance. She is wearing shorts and a tight, sleeveless shirt. Her big ass, long legs, hips, arms, and shoulders tempted her lover and made him desire her more sexually. Before he could express his desire in words, she disappeared into the bathroom. The beautiful Egyptian girl Ikram reappeared after a while. She was wrapping her body in a towel. There was nothing on her body except that red towel. Hafiz stood and held her in his arm. Her body was still wet. He kissed her on the lips. She responded for a while. Then she parted her lips and bent her legs. Hafiz did not leave her body. His arms held her close to his chest. She extended her hand and reached for the cigarette packet. Hafiz left her body and took out the matchbox. Ikram brought her mouth close to the flame and allowed him to light her cigarette. She walked to the window and sat in the chair where he had been sitting before. She stretched her legs and leaned her back on the chair. She leaned her head against the wall and took a deep breath of smoke. Her lover approached her again. Then he brought his face to her cheek to kiss her. Ikram blew smoke in his face and passed out, laughing when he coughed. Before she could tease him again, Hafiz covered her lips with his and kissed her. The towel fell from her body. Ikram tried to reach over and adjusted the towel. Hafiz pushed it away with his hand and leaned on her body. For a while, the two lovers embraced each other. Their kisses are full of passion and desire. Ikram was fully naked when her lover Hafiz was holding her wet body. I feel like we are on our honeymoon, Hafiz whispered. His friend Ikram replied, the honeymoon is for married couples. We are better than married couple. We are lovers. Yes, you are right, Hafiz. Lovers are always honest with each other. I really hate marriage. It is another form of slavery for women. Married spouses are like the master, the husband, and his slave, the wife. When the beautiful Ikram uttered these words, she pulled her body away from the body of her lover. Tears escaped her beautiful eyes and ran down her smooth cheeks. Hafiz released her body and knelt beside her. He said, "Yes, my love," and he was still looking into her eyes. He saw many tears falling from her beautiful eyes. Ikram took her cigarette, which was half burned at the time. She inhaled a large portion of it. Then she looked at Hafiz and said sadly, "I want to drink. I want something to relieve the severe pain I feel in my chest." Hafiz went to the back and took out the bottle of Anisha. He found 2 glasses and placed them on a table in front of his lover. Ikram opened the bottle and poured some of the drink into her boyfriend's cup, and then she filled her cup too. "Yes, you shouldn't drink too much today, sweetheart. You will meet your sons and their father." Before Hafiz finished speaking, he stopped and looked at Ikram. His friend corrected him, saying, "I will not meet them. I'm just going to see them. They are not supposed to meet me or even see me. If anyone finds out I am here, I'll go straight to prison." While Ikram was saying those words, her tears fell like rain, and she pronounced the last sentence while crying. She grabbed the cup and emptied half of it into her stomach. She took another cigarette and quickly lit it. Her hands were shaking as she put the cigarette to her lips. Hafiz whispered, "Relax, my dear Kram. I want you to trust me. Share your heavenly burden with me and reveal your secret to me. I promise you that I would never leave you, no matter what your past life was like. Even if you got those 2 children illegally or in a forbidden relationship or killed their father and run away, I will not abandon you. I know you love me, Hafiz. I also trust you. But I hate my past life, and that is why I hid it from you." Hafiz is silent. However, his eyes urged Ikram to continue. "I know that there is nothing worse than that an Arab girl could do than sell her body as a prostitute. I have sold my body to many men, and you know it. I also sold alcohol and drugs, but I am a victim. I was pushed into doing much more horrific things than prostitution and selling drugs and alcohol. I became a belly dancer, dancing Ashra Baladi while I was semi-naked in a private nightclub. Eventually, I arrived at a brothel and became a shameless prostitute. But no one will believe that I am an innocent girl. Even you, Hafiz, may not believe that I am an innocent victim when you know my tragic story." Hafiz wanted to assure Ikram that he would believe her, but he controlled himself before speaking. He wondered what she had done in life that made her believe that no one was ready to accept her innocence. He abandoned his previous conclusion and concluded that Ikram had killed someone very close to her 2 sons, perhaps her father. Before he could reason out any further, he found his thoughts expressed in words. "Even if you kill your children's father, I still believe you are innocent. I didn't kill anyone." "Then what did you do, my beloved friend? Tell me your secret. I want to help you." Ikram poured the rest of her glass into her mouth and threw it on the floor. The glass was shattered into small pieces. Hafiz looked at her with eyes full of doubt and suspicion. He thinks she's already drunk. "Can you shape that glass again? Can you remake it the way it was?" Ikram asked with her teeth almost closed. Hafiz looked innocently at the many broken pieces scattered around and thought about the possibility of doing something to remake the glass again and put it back together as it was. But his mind began to work again, and his intellect grasps some hidden mystery of his girlfriend's problem. I do not believe that a woman's honor is something that lies between her legs. Whatever you did in your past life, my love, it will not be against you forever. I did nothing wrong except that I did what I thought would please the person I loved. What a pity! Everything I did for him turned it against me. Please, Hafiz, let me continue to hide the secret of my past from you. I hated that painful past. My dear Crab, I don't want you to suffer alone. If you cannot tell your story in detail, just summarize it in one sentence. I cannot say it in one sentence. It is a long story. If I had to reveal it to you, I would have to say it all. When the beautiful Ikram said those words, she looked for her cup but discovered that it had been shattered into pieces and scattered everywhere. Hafs understood her desire. He washed his drinking glass, filled it with some Abyssinian liquor. Then he lovingly placed the cup near her mouth and made her take a sip. He lit a cigarette and placed it between her sweet lips. Then her friend Hafiz said after placing a loving kiss on her forehead, "Tell me your whole story now, my dear Ikram. Yes, today I will open my heart and tell you everything about my tragic past life." Chapter 2. Then the beloved Ikram began to narrate the story of her tragic past life to her beloved Hafiz. I was 16 years old when I fell in love with him. He was tall, handsome, and had a nice personality. He had curly hair. When he spoke, his voice was musical. He smiled often. It seemed that his smile was part of his attractive nature. He never spoke without smiling. He likes to tease and annoy people even if he meets them for the first time. He was aware of his masculine ability and personality that attracted the opposite sex towards him. He knew when and how to use his charm and masculine ability to trap and attract girls. One of his relatives was my neighbor and best friend. Her name was Nabila. We went to the same girls' school together and studied together. She told me that she loves him and he loves her too, and that they are engaged to each other. They were planning to get married as soon as she finished 12th grade. She always talked to me about him. She almost worshipped him. We were studying our lessons together at her house. We spent half of our time talking about him. I have wanted to see him for a long time. It seemed that my friend Nabila does not want me to see him and meet him before they are married. I knew he came to her house a few times and she lied to me about it. It was just a coincidence that I went to her house one day and met him. When I saw him, he looked at me and smiled. I guessed from his charming beauty and attractive appearance that he was Nabila's lover and fiancé. At first, my girlfriend wasn't ready to introduce us to each other. She was afraid that he might fall in love with me and leave her. I felt impressed when he looked at me, smiled, and extended his hand to shake my hand. I offered him my hand and looked down. "Before you shake my hand, you should first tell me what your name is," he said to me. I took my hand away from him and looked at him in an angry mood. My friend Nabila said to him with a frown, "I'm sorry, I was supposed to tell you that this is my friend and schoolmate Ikram." He said while smiling, "Now I know who wants to greet me." Then he approached me, took my hand and shook it affectionately. I was impressed by his friendly nature as if he knew about me before I saw him. "How old are you, Ikram?" "I'm 16 years old." "How tall are you?" "I don't know." "Do you know how tall Nabila is?" I don't know how tall she is, but I think she's shorter than you. So, if you tell me how tall you are, I can guess how tall she is. But you should have asked her how tall she was before you asked me. Yes, you are right, but height is not important for all girls. I wanted to know why he thought height was not important for all women. But Nabila spoke before me and changed the subject. I know she didn't want our conversation to go any further. Nabila said quickly, I know that my friend Ikram is in a hurry. What do you want, Ikram? She kept staring at me with an angry face. I just want to borrow your history book. I left my book at school. Nabila quickly went to the study table and brought the book. She handed it to me and waited for me to leave. When I turned my back and started walking, he spoke to me again. Wait a minute, Ikram. I haven't finished my questions yet. Besides, I haven't told you my name yet. She knows more about you than you do about her, Nabila said. What do you know about me? He asked excitedly. Before I could answer his question, he asked me another question. If you know as much about me as Nabila said, then tell me where I live. You live in your house, I said jokingly. He passed out laughing so hard he almost screamed. He slammed his hand on the table. He stood smiling and put his hand on his chest. He said, My dear Kram, everyone lives in his own house. This is not an answer. You have to tell me where I live. You live somewhere in this city. Everyone lives somewhere in this city. Okay, I will change the question. How tall am I or how old am I? If you answer either of these two questions, I will release you and let you go home. You are 6 feet 1 inch tall. You are 18 years old. You are in 12th grade. You live in the Anas neighborhood. You love music and football. Want to be a musician in the future. Your favorite color is red. Is this enough knowledge about you, or do you want me to tell you more about yourself? Meanwhile, he was standing like a statue, and with every word I spoke, his eyes widened and his smile increased. I want an explanation, he said happily and very enthusiastically. Explanation about what? I asked him while laughing. How can you know all these impersonal things about me when I only saw you today? I looked at Nabila and smiled. Her face revealed discomfort. She seemed very angry and understood that I had betrayed her by revealing everything she had told me about him. He said, Look at me, my dear Ikram. Only a close friend knows so much about me. I know you don't know any of my friends. Tell me where you got this private and confidential information about me. I look at Nabila. My eyes were begging her to intervene and save me from her lover and a relative. She didn't respond. He understood my intention. Even Nabila doesn't know much about me. I said to him, challenging him, but she's your relative. So what? I don't think I ever told her what I like or don't like. It is okay for her to know all this about her friend and relative. But Nabila is just my relative. She is not my friend. His direct and bold answer struck my friend Nabila like a thunderbolt. From that moment on, I began to doubt the veracity of her love affair with him. I couldn't believe that a boyfriend could be so rude to his beloved girlfriend and fiancée. I saw Nabila's face became very angry. Her eyes narrowed, and a few drops of tears fell from them. I apologized to her and ran to my house. For 2 days, I avoided meeting Nabila. When I met her again, I discovered that her attitude towards me had changed. She told me that her fiancé apologized after I left. I did not know whether she meant that he apologized to her or to me. A few days later, she told me that he still loved her and considered her his fiancée and future wife. I ignored the whole matter and decided not to interfere in their romantic relationship. I don't remember how long it was until I saw him again. It was in Nabila's house again. He came one evening while Nabila and I were sitting in her compound and studying our lessons. The wound he caused in our friendship had healed by then. I almost forget everything about him. I avoided talking to her about her fiancé, who she claimed loved her very much, and she loved him to the point of worship. He came that day with his school books. I ignored him and kept my gaze focused on my book. He sat quietly and said to us, "Peace be upon you, boss." Nabila responded to his greeting, but I did not open my mouth. However, his presence made my heart beat fast, and when I tried to talk to Nabila, I lost my voice. I have never felt such a wonderful and solemn emotional feeling toward this any boy before. I couldn't concentrate on studying my book. He ignored me as I ignored him, and he talked more to Nabila. Their conversation upset me because I knew he wanted me to feel ignored. After some time, he gave a piece of chocolate to Nabila and threw another piece on my book. "Thank you," I said in a low voice. "I don't eat a lot of chocolate." "One piece of chocolate is not a lot," he said that when he saw my hand pushing the chocolate to Nabila. When I did not comment, he resumed, "Or maybe pretty girls don't eat a lot of sweets because this may increase their sweetness." His comment about me made Nabila get up and leave. I didn't know whether she would come back again or not. She left me alone with him. I'm sorry if I said something inappropriate that might have offended Nabila. I always like to joke with people. I admit that I sometimes get in trouble for doing this. I was completely amazed by what he said to me in front of his girlfriend and fiancé. Thank God that Nabila came back and saved me from the trouble of being alone with her cousin. Shortly after that, I returned home. Nabila never told me anything about that second incident that hurt her feelings. I pretended as if nothing had happened that evening. Meanwhile, her fiancé made frequent visits to our house to her house and became a member of our study group. With each passing day, I became more convinced that he does not love Nabila. His behavior confirmed to me that he liked me and wanted me to respond to his love. I started to love him too, and when he didn't come, I missed him. Meanwhile, Nabila did everything in her power to prevent us from falling in love together. One day, in her absence, he told me that he didn't love her. We exchanged quick questions and answers as Nabila went to bring us some tea. He said to me in a whisper, "Believe me, my dear Kram, I do not love Nabila, but she thinks you love her." I said to him in a low voice, "But love must be on both sides. Her love for me is one-sided. I never told her I love you. But at least you got engaged to her. This is not true. It is something our parents said when we were little kids. But she takes it seriously. Therefore, she will be hurt if you withdraw now. But I don't want to marry a girl I don't love. You should have told her this a long time ago, and yet it is not too late. Be honest with her and tell her the truth. Believe me, Ikram, I have told her the truth repeatedly, but she does not want to give up. She thinks I am her relative and should marry her. Why don't you marry her? She is a very sweet girl. Before he could answer my last question, his cousin Nabila returned. That night, he did something that put me in an awkward dilemma. I knew he loved me, and I felt the same way about him. But I wanted him to solve the problem of his fiancée Nabila first. While his cousin Nabila was away reading, while his cousin Nabila was busy reading her book, I felt his hand touch me under the table. Then I felt a piece of paper fall on my lap and in the area between my hips, between my thighs. I placed my book on my lap and quickly slid the paper inside. I have never felt more afraid in my entire life than that day. It felt like we were having under the table foreplay with his cousin present. I knew he sent me an emotional message. It was the first love letter I ever received from a boy. I read it in the toilet inside Nabila's house and immediately tore it up and threw the pieces there. His love letter expressed that he loved me and wanted to know how I felt about him. I knew that love before marriage in our Islamic society is dangerous. So there is no point in having a love relationship with a boy if we are not aiming for marriage. For me, the important question became it is not whether I like him or not. What I hesitated to know before committing to a romantic relationship with him was the issue of marriage. For that reason, it took me a long time to respond to his first emotional message to me. In my response, I made the issue of his engagement to Nabila the subject of my letter. He responded to my request, informed Nabila of our love affair, and officially broke off that engagement. My friend, colleague, and neighbor Nabila boycotted me and never spoke to me again for the rest of her life. Chapter 3. Everyone knew we loved each other. Some of my friends thought I was a selfish girl and took him from my friend Nabila, who was his fiancée. I was openly blamed by everyone and told to my face by some girls that I was a selfish, disloyal, and rude young woman with no regard for friendship, fellowship, the right to companionship, and the neighborhood. So many of my friends, colleagues, and neighbors boycotted me. Even some of my relatives from my father's and mother's sides hated me when they heard the shocking news. However, I did not end my love affair with him, and our love continued to grow steadily. In a short time, we became famous lovers as if we were Qais and Layla or Antar and Abla. Many young people admire our bold approach and treated us as if we were the hero and heroine in a movie. His mother did not want him to marry Nabila because she was close to him through his father. For this reason, his mother welcomed our romantic relationship and bragged about it to the woman in the neighborhood. Whenever I went to their house or I met her somewhere, she would compliment my beauty and personality. My family also liked our love relationship, so we became engaged to each other within a few months. I wanted to finish my studies and get my high school diploma before we got married. But he was in a hurry, as if he was afraid I would change my mind if it took a long time. A year after the beginning of our love and after the end of our engagement period, we got married. A few days later, I was transferred to his family's home. We lived with his mother and father. Our married life was happy at first. His mother treated me like a queen in her house. Everything I wanted, she bought for me. My husband was unemployed at the time, so we were dependent on his on his family. He finished the 12th grade but failed his exam and did not obtain any certificate. He was not interested in continuing his studies after he married me. He even prevented me from completing my studies and forced me to leave girls' high school before I completed the 11th grade. He and his parents wanted me to be a housewife. The problem started between me and his family when his mother started asking whether I was pregnant with his child or not. How do I know if I am pregnant or not unless I take a pregnancy test? I innocently told her to avoid always answering her constant questions. You are talking like a 9-year-old girl. I'm not a child, but I'm married and sensible girl. But if you are an adult girl, of course, you will know whether you got your period or not. Yes, I got my period a few days ago. That means you are not a pregnant wife. A year has passed since you married my son, and you have not yet born him a child, as if you were a barren woman. Children are a gift from God, and He gives them at the time He wants to give them to His worshippers. She laughed sarcastically and said to me, "Today you have become a virtuous wife and a chaste girl after you fell in love with before marriage with my son and you allowed him to kiss you, hug you, and do everything forbidden with you until you brought the curse of barrenness upon you." I could not answer her false accusations against me or try to deny them because I knew that those rumors were spreading in our neighborhood about my love affair with my fiance before our marriage. Yet she continued to bester me with that pressing question. I didn't like the performative looks on her face whenever she asked me about my pregnancy. When she continued to nag me about that pregnancy, I told my husband. He told me to ignore her and live my married life with him as if nothing had happened. After another year, his mother was convinced that I was barren and unable to have children. She constantly teased me about it as if I was intentionally refraining from having a child for her son. She started quarreling with me daily for some reason or no reason. Her quarrels with me reached my mother's ears. My mother came to her house and challenged her to send me and her son to the doctor for a medical examination. She treated me harshly after her fight with my mother. I asked my husband to take me to the doctor to find out if I was barren or not, but he refused. Shortly thereafter, I heard that my mother-in-law was secretly planning to find a second Muslim wife for her son. I asked my husband about his mother and the possibility of him taking a second Muslim wife besides me, but he denied it. One day, I had a big fight with my mother-in-law. She accused my mother and my family of all kinds of vices and false slander. She claimed that my mother, when she was a new bride, was having a secret relationship with the milkman, Abdelgadir Al-Arij, and that I was an illegitimate daughter, and my biological father was the secret lover of my mother, who was cheating on her husband with him. When I scolded her and challenged her to prove her false accusation, she spat in my face and slapped me. In my anger, I also spat on her face, but I did not hit her on the cheek like she did. When my husband found out that I had spat in his mother's face, he divorced me immediately. This was not my first divorce. One day, when my husband was having a family dispute, he swore to divorce me. When family members did not respond to his demands, this was counted as a first divorce against me. As a result of my second divorce, my mother-in-law kicked me out of her house and I returned to my father's house. After a few days, my husband regretted his decision. He wanted to take me back, but his mother was against our reconciliation. She threatened to cut off one of her breasts if her son took me back as his wife again after my divorce. I lived with my parents for a few months. My husband visited me at my family's house often. By then, his mother's anger had gradually faded. She finally agreed to take me back to her home as a halal Muslim wife for her son. My husband asked me to apologize to her for spitting in her face, which I did. When I moved back to her, she changed her attitude towards me. We lived in a peace for a few months, but one day my mother came to my house and told me told me the sad news that I hardly believed it. She told me that my husband wanted to marry his cousin Nabila. She is my friend, classmate, and former neighbor who was engaged to him before he fell in love with me. I did not believe my mother until I asked my husband about his intention for a second Islamic marriage. He admitted it reluctantly. I asked him to divorce me immediately. He refused to release me. His main argument was that he wanted to have a child with Nabila to bear his name. I was afraid to go to a doctor and have a medical examination to find out if I was really barren. When I confirmed that my husband wanted to marry Nabila, I left his house without his knowledge and returned to my parents' home. My husband came to me a few days later. He apologized to me and promised me that he would not marry Nabila if I returned to him. Accepting his apology, I returned to his house. I knew that if I did not have a child, my husband would marry a second wife sooner or later. Nabila would certainly be willing to marry him as a challenge to me and in revenge for her belief that I stole her lover and fiancé from her and married him treacherously and betrayed our friendship as everyone believes. At first, I wanted to go to a doctor and get an examination without my husband knowing, but I was afraid to do an examination without informing him. Instead, my neighbor took me to a magician man. He was a witch doctor named Faki Mahmoud, and he was very famous. He was originally from Abba, Egypt, from southern Egypt. He was young and handsome. He belonged to the same tribe as my husband. They are both black Nubians from southern Egypt. He was famous for his success in his magic healing career. He assured me that I would have a child if I agreed to trust him for my infertility and pay a certain amount of money to him. Before I paid the money to him and agreed for him to treat me for the problem of sterility that I thought I was suffering from, I spoke with my mother and she liked the idea and agreed to pay the required amount. We paid the money secretly without the knowledge of my husband and his parents, and Faki Mahmoud began his treatment for me. Every time I went to his house, he would give me some black water. It is some verses of the Holy Quran written on a wooden tablet. Then wash it with warm water, place it on a pottle, and the barren wife is asked to drink that diluted water. At least he said his treatment would take 2 months. If I was not pregnant within 3 months, Faki Mahmoud promised to return the money we had paid. I innocently believed him and did everything he asked me to do. I was so desperate that I was willing to do anything to get pregnant. I did not want my husband to marry Nabila as a second Muslim wife and become my rival competitor. I did not want to live with a competitive wife in my married life. I knew that the biggest crime a husband commits against his wife is marrying a second wife beside her. The woman, my neighbor, who introduced me to Fakir Mahmoud, claimed that he helped her have a child after 3 years of living with her husband without having a successor. Whenever I went to Fakir Mahmoud, he would give me black razor water, which would make me completely numb like a drunk or a drunk woman. And I would sleep in his house, in his bed and his room. My neighbor always accompanied me and sat waiting for me to wake up from my coma. While she was waiting, she was sitting in a place crowded with visitors who had come to receive treatment. Most of them were married women who came to the mighty witch doctor to give them talismans, charms, or amulets to prevent their husbands from marrying other women as their rival co-wives. There were unmarried girls who wanted the witch doctor to give them solutions to their splinterhood problems. The treatment was continued weekly. Sometimes the witch doctor would put his hands all over my body and spit on my face. For 8 weeks, I visited Fakir Mahmoud's home with my good neighbor. She was indeed, her name was Taiba. During the course of treatment, I became very fascinated by the so-called magic healer. In an abbreviated period of time, I became friends with him as if I had known him for years. He had a very charming personality. Most of his visitors were young, unmarried women. He started liking me so much, and whenever I come, he praised my beauty. On the last visit, the witch doctor asked me to make sure that my husband would sleep with me that night and have sex with me until my womb was filled with his child and I became pregnant. My husband knew nothing about my visits to Fakir Mahmoud. Meanwhile, the date of his second marriage to his cousin Nabila was secretly set. But my mother learned about it from a neighbor woman and informed me about it again. When I asked my husband, he admitted that he wanted a second Islamic marriage to Nabila because he wanted to have children with her. As he told me, as a man, Sharia allows him to marry 4 wives at the same time. He read to me part of Surah An-Nisa, verse 3, which allows a man to have multiple wives. So marry as many women as you like, 2, 3, or 4. This time I left his house and was determined never to return again. I also stopped going to Fakir Mahmoud. It was heartbreaking and humiliating for me and my family when my husband married my neighbor and former colleague Nabila and celebrated their marriage publicly. After my husband married my ex-girlfriend, I consider my marital relationship with him to be over forever. My love for him gradually died, and I regretted that I fell in love with him and married him. I felt that I had made a big mistake in causing the breakup of his previous engagement with Nabila. I thought he lied to me about his love affair and engagement with her. He left her, abandoned her, and betrayed her when he saw my amazing beauty and lusted after my sexy body. Moreover, I concluded that she would bear him children, and everyone would consider that God had cursed me with the barrenness and punished me for the evil, selfish, and greedy actions I had committed against my friend Nabila. Chapter 4. When I fled my husband's house and returned to my parents' home, I found a Christian family who had moved into the house next to my family's house. That Coptic family bought the house next to my family's house from a Muslim family that sold their place after the head of the family, Sarhan, died in a fatal traffic accident, and the family members became poor and did not even have enough food to survive. It was a large family consisting of 7 children, all of whom were still young and in school. 4 of them are girls and 3 boys, and none of the sons have reached the age of 10 yet in order to find work and earn money to support his family members after the sudden death of his father. So they sold their house and bought another house in a poor neighborhood, crowded with needy residents as well. I learned it from my mother that this poor widow now works as a maid in rich people's residence to earn a living for her 7 children. My mother Khadija and my brother Samir became friendly with the members of this new Christian family. This new Coptic family that has become our neighbor consists of a father, mother, son, and daughter. It did not take long for me to discover that my Muslim brother Samir had fallen in love with the daughter of that Christian family. My brother's girlfriend was known as Gabriela. She was an exceptionally beautiful girl. She had long hair and noticeably fair skin. Compared to us, she looked like a foreign Khawajia, one of the blondes of Europe. She had incredibly beautiful green eyes. When I talked to my brother Samir about his relationship with her, he admitted that he had fallen in love with her. Gradually, I too developed a kind of friendship and affection with her. She would often come to our house and spend long hours talking to my brother Samir. Gabriela had an older brother named Gabriel. He was a good man too, like his sister. He was really sweet and had a charismatic personality. He was also very handsome and looked like a young white European Hawaii. As their friendship with my family developed, I also began to love Gabriela. I love visiting her home and talking to her brother. Whenever the Coptic girl came to our house, her brother would come with her. I discovered that the handsome Christian guy, Gabriel, started to like me too. One day, I talked to Gabriela about the future of her friendship with my brother Samir. I knew in Islam that it is permissible for a Muslim man to marry a Christian girl without asking her to change her religion. Gabriela admitted that she loved my brother Samir, but said that she would never marry him as long as he was a Muslim and adhered to his religion. She says that her Christian religion prevents her from marrying a non-Christian, even if he is a Jew, a Muslim, or an atheist. Her words discouraged me for a while and made me stop frequent visits to her house. I informed my brother of his Christian girlfriend's decision, and I was surprised to learn that he knew about it. He said that regardless of the outcome of his love affair with Gabriela, he would still love her. I was so amazed by the relationship between my brother and his Coptic girlfriend. At first, I viewed it as a fruitless and pointless friendship. But as the months passed, I discovered that Samir and Gabriela loved each other unconditionally. It was true love between them that united their souls, even though their bodies may never meet in marriage. The love between my Arab Muslim brother and our Coptic Christian neighbor made me realize that my husband never loved me as a person, but he loved my beauty and my body. When he learned that we could not have children, he ran to his relative Nabila, whom he had once abandoned, and married me. I understood that if she did not have children, he would marry a third Muslim wife as well. I regretted my decision to stop visiting Gabriela and meet her brother Gabriel. So I once again began to bond with the Coptic boy and allowed his love to grow within me. When my mother found out that I love our Christian neighbor, she became incredibly angry with me. She scolded me and repeatedly told me that I was still legally married to my husband. I asked my mother why she did not object to the love relationship between her Muslim son Samir and the Christian girl Gabriela. My mother said that Samir is not married and, and Sharia law allows him to marry a Christian girl. However, I ignored my mother's warnings and objections and allowed Gabriel's love to fill my heart and heal the wounds caused by my husband marrying another girl as a second Muslim wife next to me. Our Muslim parents also strongly wanted and forbade us not to eat any food in the house of our infidel Christian neighbors because their food is not permissible for Muslims to eat because it is not halal food. Ironically, Brother Gabriel and his sister Gabriela did eat food in our house, even though they knew that we considered them infidel Christians and their food was forbidden for us to eat because we are Muslims. I felt like I had never understood, experienced, or enjoyed love until I fell in love with Gabriel. He had the most charming and charismatic personality I have ever met. I knew that my relationship with him would not lead to marriage even if my Muslim husband divorced me because Islamic law prohibits a Muslim woman from marrying a Christian man. However, this religious restriction did not become a problem for Gabriel and me. We continued to meet secretly at his home or my parents' house and express our sincere and strong emotional feelings for each other. We had kissed and caressed each other's body, but we didn't have sex. When my husband learned of my romantic relationship with the Christian guy Gabriel through some of our noisy neighbors, he asked me to return to his house because I was still his fairest Muslim wife. I stood strongly against his request and told him that I should never dream of me returning to his home as long as he had Nabila as a second Muslim wife and my rival competitor. My husband ignored me and took the case to the Sharia court. When I was invited to come to the Sharia court to attend the trial, I refused to go. Despite my absence from the trial, the Sharia court judge considered me a disobedient, nauseous wife who rebelled against the authority of my Muslim husband, and therefore he issued an obedience ruling against me. After the Sharia court issued a verdict of obedience against me, the police came to my father's house and forcefully took me to my husband's house. Accordingly, my Muslim husband locked me in his house and did not allow me to visit my parents. My relationship with him was no longer between a lover and a beloved, but rather between a Muslim master and his imprisoned Muslim slave wife. He often beat me and tortured me. He started raping me whenever I refused to have sex with him as a husband and wife in bed. He told me repeatedly that the Quran allows him to discipline me by hitting me whenever I disobeyed him, even during intercourse. He quoted a verse from Surah An-Nisa that permits Muslim men to discipline their disobedient women. Men are guardians of women because God has favored them over others and because they spend their wealth. So the righteous women are obedient and protect the unseen by what God has preserved. And as for those whose disobedience you fear, admonish them and leave them to your beds and beat them. But if they obey you, do not seek any way against them. Indeed, God is most high. Surah An-Nisa 4, verse 34. He often raped me through painful anal sex. He also quoted a verse from the Quran that permits a husband to have anal sexual intercourse with his wife against her wishes. This is done by inserting his erect penis into my small ass hole and fucking me against my will, even if I scream in pain. The Holy Quran says, so your woman are your talit, so come to your talit, whatever way you wish. Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verse 223. As a result, I began to hate him bitterly and wished for his death to save me from his tyranny and torment. He understood that I no longer loved him, but I loved the Coptic Christian boy Gabriel. For this reason, he beat me, raped me, and tied me with ropes in the obedience house like a rebellious female slave to him. Chapter 5. Even though my husband locked me in his house and prevented me from meeting anyone else, he could not kill my deep and sincere love for the young Coptic Christian guy Gabriel. His mother died shortly after I was brought to her home by the police. His mother's death was a huge relief to me. She died, she constantly teased me and blamed me for not having children. After her death, I received some relief, but enjoyed little freedom under house arrest in the house of obedience. My husband allowed my mother to come to visit me once a month. Every time she came, I asked her about my Muslim brother Samir, his Christian girlfriend Gabriela, and her Coptic brother Gabriel. My mother always told me they were doing well. One day she told me that my brother got accepted into the police academy and moved to the Egyptian capital city. She said that Gabriela was admitted into a medical college and moved to Cairo city as well. As for Gabriel, she said that he got a job in a bank and still lives with his parents. I was thrilled to learn that my Coptic lover was still living in the same city as me. The news about him brought so much joy to my heart and made me long to see him again. I always longed to kiss him, cuddle him, and enjoy the company of his sweet personality. Due to constant requests and pressure from my family members, my husband finally allowed me to visit my parents' home from time to time. Although these visits were only allowed once or twice a month, I was able to meet my beloved Christian Gabriel and renew our love. By then, my husband had married a third Muslim wife. After I learned about his third wife, I began to look at him as a selfish man looking for pleasure. He did not care about breaking the hearts of others, even his first and second wives. I viewed his second Islamic marriage to Nabila and the third Muslim wife as a marriage of betrayal and not an Islamic marriage permitted by the Holy Quran for the Muslim husband in Surah An-Nisa 4, verse 3. That is why I decided to betray him too with the person I love sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I encouraged my Christian lover Gabriel to visit me at my home while my selfish husband was away at work. I told him over the phone when he could come and have a fun time with me. After the death of his controlling mother, I had some freedom. His father was an elderly, senile man, more than 70 years old geezer. He is a blind man and suffered from problems with his hearing and movement. So he did not know anything was happening at home while his only son, my husband, was away at work. My Coptic lover, Gabriel, started coming to visit me secretly. No one knew about his visits, although I started cheating on my husband by having sex with my Christian lover, I always asked myself who was the fairest traitor, as he cheated on me by having sex with another girl who is Nabila under the pretext of Islamic halal polygamy. He repeated he repeated the same infidelity against me when he took a third Muslim wife as a new rival competitor. I've always asked myself, why does Islamic law permit a Muslim husband to commit adultery with two or three women while he's married to his first legal wife? What a woman in the entire world can tolerate her husband sleeping with another woman in her knowledge? When a man commits adultery, the Holy Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad call it an Islamic halal marriage. And when a wife does the same, Islam calls her an adulteress, condemns her, and orders her to be stoned to death. Why these double standards? When I reached this conclusion, I began to have physical relationship with my Christian lover Gabriel without feeling that I was doing anything wrong. I knew that I was a Muslim woman and could not marry him as a Christian man, even if my husband divorced me. Therefore, I had to enjoy my friendship and love with him secretly without anyone knowing. To be honest with you, my dear friend Hafiz, I started cheating on my Muslim husband with my Christian lover without feeling guilty or committing adultery with another man. I started having sex with my Coptic friend Gabriel for two reasons. Firstly, I did it because I loved him with every cell in my body. Secondly, and the most important reason is that I wanted it to know whether I was a barren wife or whether my husband was infertile. It didn't take long before I got an answer to my important question. It happened, and I became pregnant. It was a great relief and joy for me. I missed my period and concluded that I had become pregnant by my Christian lover. I first spoke to my mother about this happy news, but I told her that I got pregnant from my husband, my Muslim husband. I also lied to her that I was still receiving treatment to solve the problem of my infertility through the witch doctor Faki Mahmoud. My mother believed my lies and took me to a doctor for a pregnancy test. My pregnancy was confirmed through urine and blood test. I became pregnant with a child after 5 years of marriage. As soon as my husband got home, I told him the good news about my pregnancy. I wanted him to know about it. I expected the news of my pregnancy to be a challenge for him, not happy news. However, I thought he would be incredibly happy to have a child after being married to two other rival women besides me. None of his three Muslim wives became pregnant except me, his first wife. But his response surprised me. He replied with astonishment and angry face, "That is impossible. You cannot be pregnant. It is a false medical report. It must be a phantom pregnancy." I said in amazement, "I'm pregnant." And the doctor confirmed this through urine and blood tests. When he did not respond, I shouted at him, "Why don't you believe that? Are you sad because I became pregnant?" "No, you are not pregnant." He repeated his words aloud. "If it is true that you are pregnant, then you are divorced. You want to divorce me because I'm pregnant? Yes, you are divorced if you are pregnant. I cannot live with a worthless woman like you who cheats on her husband with another man." It did not take me long to understand his meaning. "Why didn't you tell me that before? Why did you deceive me that you wanted to marry Nabila because you wanted to have a child. Then the said woman you took as a wife for the same excuse. He did not answer my questions. He just got up and said to me, "You are divorced. When I return home, I don't want to see you here. If I find you in my house, I will slaughter you with my knife in an honor killing." Then he left the house and slammed the door behind him in great rage. When the Egyptian girl Ikram reached this point in telling her tragic story to her friend Hafiz, she emptied the cup in her mouth and looked at him to see if he understood her problem. Hafiz filled her glass with liquor, lit a cigarette, and placed it between her lips. Then he took out his handkerchief and wiped away the heavy tears falling like rain from her cheeks. "My dear Ikram, why didn't you tell me your husband's name? You told me the name of your Christian lover, Gabriel, and the others except his name. I deliberately neglected to mention his name because it does not befit his evil character. But since you asked me, I will only say it once and never say it again. His despicable name will defile me if I mention it again with my tongue. His name is At-Tayyib Saleh, but my husband was the most despicable, selfish, and lustful person I have ever met. He alone destroyed my life and sent me to brothels." "What happened after that?" Hafiz asked in a voice almost crying. "He kicked me out of his house and divorced me for the third time. My mother didn't make a big deal about it because she was afraid of a scandal. I tried to assure her that the baby in my womb was my husband's, but she didn't want to talk to me about my suspicious pregnancy. My husband spread malicious rumors against me and swear by the Holy Quran in front of his relatives, friends, and neighbors that I had betrayed him and committed adultery with another kicker. He specifically mentioned to be with that I used to bring my uncircumcised lover, the infidel Christian man Gabriel, in his absence, and I committed adultery with him in his house, his room, and in his bed. He claimed that some neighbors told him that they saw the uncircumcised infidel Christian Big entering his house in his absence. It seemed that my mother herself doubted the paternity of the child and considered him, like others, not to be my husband's son, but rather an illegitimate child whom I had conceived through adultery with my infidel Christian lover, Gabriel. So many people thought he was the child of my beloved Christian neighbor, Gabriel. At any rate, 9 months later, I gave birth to the baby. He was born, and I gave him the name Adil At-Tayyib Saleh. Everyone thought that my eldest son Adil was Gabriel's child. Some of my husband's relatives came to my parents' house and publicly accused me of cheating on my Muslim husband with an infidel Christian man. What I thought would bring me some relief turned out to be a source of great shame for me and my family. I lived a very miserable life after that. However, I did not blame myself or even my beloved Gabriel. Despite all these rumors and gossip, I continued to love him. I met him secretly at his residence and at my parents' house. My third divorce was a relief, not a sadness. I suffered so much when I hear women blaming my mother on her face. The constant complaining from my husband's relatives and neighbors made me regret my hasty decision to have an illegitimate child with someone other than my Muslim husband. I wish that my husband would take me back to his house so that I could silence the mouths of this obscene woman. Because of the gossip and the shadow of that scandal about my ill-gotten child, I live a terrifying life. I even tried to commit suicide 3 times to get rid of the sexual scandal that continued to torment my conscience, eat my heart like cancer, and disturb my family. The first time I swallowed some pills to die in my bed, I was taken to the hospital by ambulance while I was unconscious and my life was saved. The second time, I drank something blue from the dye and thought it was poisonous. Once again, my family took me to the hospital and I survived. My family became worried about me. Depression has led to me having some psychological problems. I started talking to myself when no one was there with me as if I was a crazy woman. In my third suicidal attempt, I even used a razor and cut my wrists. But again, my family saved me and I was transferred to an ambulance and rushed to the intensive care unit in the hospital. Sometimes I would hallucinate seeing my husband and his wife Nabila and talking to them. Sometimes I would laugh and cry for no reason. My mother saw that my in-laws had cast a black magic spell on me or that I had been struck by the evil eye of an envious woman. My mother took me to some witch doctors. She also took me to a sheikh's house and performed the Alzar dance ritual on me. It is an Islamic religious ritual in which evil demons are exorcised through dancing to appease those unclean devils possessing a woman. Only Muslim women were allowed to participate in this satanic religious dance, but sometimes in Egypt even men could take part on it. When Alzar did not treat me, my mother took me to a Muslim sheikh who claimed that he could expel the devil from my body, which was possessed by jinn, through Islamic lawful ruqya, as-salihah, or exorcism. So he read to me Ayat al-Kursi from Surah Al-Baqarah 2, verse 255, and Al-Ma'uzatain, both Surah Al-Falaq, or a daybreak, 113, and Surah An-Nas, or a mankind, 114 from the Holy Quran. He did not treat me or relieve me from any psychological traumas. Despite all those magical and religious treatments, nothing was able to save me from that hellish life. After examining all the message of Islamic religious treatment, the Christian woman, our neighbor, who is the mother of Gabriel and Gabriela, suggested to my Muslim mother that she knows an aesthetic Coptic Christian hermit who lives alone in monk's cell in the heart of the desert. She said that many Coptic Christians and even Egyptian Muslims went to him to receive treatment for diseases that have no cure, such as cancer, epilepsy, the inability to have children due to barrenness, and to expel demons from their possessed bodies. Those possessed by jinn and goblins have been treated in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and through the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God the Father. She said that she knew Egyptian Christian and Muslim women who had not given birth, but after visiting the Christian saint, they became mothers of children. He is a single man who has no wife or relatives. He resides alone in his hermitage, where he lives alone. He fasts and prays to the Lord day and night in the heart of the desert in a single room called the furnace or a qalaya due to its intense heat, surrounded it by poisonous snakes and scorpions. Of course, my Muslim mother rejected the advice of our Christian neighbor and did not take me to that Christian monk to expel the devils from me in the name of his Lord Jesus Christ. She said to me, if the righteous Muslim sheikh who worships Allah, believes in the oneness of God, and follows his infallible Prophet Muhammad, the chosen one, did not treat me, then how can an infidel, uncircumcised, impure Christian monk who worship the Prophet Jesus, son of Mary, as a Lord, expel Satan from my body possessed by jinn? After that, the Egyptian Muslim woman, Ikram, stopped narrating her past tragedy and began to cry. Her friend Hafiz held her in his arms and allowed her to cry for a while. She cried like a little girl who lost her loving mother, who died and left her an orphan without anyone. Her lover continued to caress her hands and body until her emotions calmed down. She had a few glasses of hard alcohol before she started speaking again. My rescue came and pulled me out of my sadness and suicidal mood. It came from the last place I expected to save my life in such a difficult time. The relief came from the mosque. This happened during congregational prayer on Holy Friday. Women and young wives my age were not allowed to go to the mosque to pray. My mother was the first to tell me about the new teachings preached by the Imam of the mosque near our house called Sheikh Atiyatullah. In one of his Friday sermons, he talked about polygamy in Islam. He said that a Muslim man may marry up to 4 wives at the same time. He mentioned many reasons for a man to marry another Muslim woman with his first wife. He said that the Quran, the Holy Quran, and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad did not give a reason for polygamy, but some contemporary scholars have specified reasons for marrying a second, third, or fourth woman. He mentioned not having children among the reasons stipulated by these jurists. My husband asked Imam Sheikh Atiyatullah whether it is permissible for a Muslim woman to divorce her Muslim husband, if he is not able to have children because he is a barren man. His Eminence Sheikh Atiyatullah told my husband, At-Tayyib Salih, that infertility only concerns women. A man can be impotent, but a man cannot be a barren as a woman. All the people praying in the mosque, including my husband, believe in the Imam's teaching about the wife's impotence. The next day, my husband came to my house and openly apologized to my family and me. He told me that Imam Sheikh Atiyatullah stated that all 4 schools of Sharia and all Muslim scholars agreed that the Muslim husband cannot be barren like the wife. Then, after he apologized for falsely accusing me of marital infidelity, he expressed his willingness to return me to him. I had no choice but to accept his apology and responded to his request to return me to his house. Now, he said that he believes that my firstborn child Adil, whom he accused me of giving birth to through adultery with my Christian lover Gabriel, is his child. However, I was not convinced by the opinion of the Imam of the mosque, nor the consensus of Muslim jurists. I knew what Islamic law says to the case of a proven adultery of a Muslim wife. The boy is for the bed, and the whore is for the stone. This means that the illegitimate child must be attributed as the son of the adulterous wife's husband, but she must be stoned to death. Anyway, my parents accepted my husband's apology and encouraged me to join him at his house. A day has been set for my return to his home. His second Muslim wife, Nabila, was not happy with our reconciliation. She even came to my parents' house and fought with me and my mother. Neither I nor my mother responded to her accusations. She strongly objected to my reconciliation with my Muslim husband and cited a legitimate reason preventing my return. She said that my husband could not take me back as his first Muslim wife because he divorced me 3 times. According to Islamic law, a man may divorce his wife twice and take her back. If he divorces her the third time, she cannot return to him until she marries another man and sleeps with him. If her new Muslim husband divorces her after having sexual intercourse with her, then she can return to her ex-husband. When the matter reached the Imam of the mosque, Sheikh Atiyatullah, he legally confirmed the validity of Nabila's objection.